Matthew 13, 1 through 9, and 18 through 23, the parable of the sower. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat there while the crowds stood out on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what was sown on the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and in another 30.
Would you pray with me? Loving God, may the meditations of all of our hearts and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Friends, this morning we heard a very familiar story, the story of the parable of the sower. A sower went out to sow. El sembrador salió a sembrar. And we can spend all morning and beyond talking about who's the soil and what's the seed and who's the sower. But what is important is that the story still speaks to us today. And Jesus begins by saying, listen, escucha, presta atención, intimating that what's coming next is of great importance. And this morning, I could talk about seeds, but I really want to talk about roots. As you know, I am from Puerto Rico, and in the Caribbean, often you would see bamboo growing on side of the road or next to a body of water or just randomly everywhere. And bamboo is a sustainable material. It can be harvested and it grows back relatively quickly without the need of replanting. And that's because it has a strong network of roots. And the bamboo roots are surprisingly enough not very deep, but their strength, it really consists on the roots that grow horizontally, and they're called rhizomes. And rhizomes ensure that the bamboo continues to spread and fortifies itself, creating a network of system of roots just underneath the ground. When I think about the times that we are living in, the seeds that have been spread around this land for so many years, the seeds that have been spread around the world, I wonder, why is it that still today we're having to remind the world that Black lives matter? Why is it that still today we're fighting systemic racism? Why is it that we continue to work to dismantle white supremacy? Why is it that the shoots of injustice and prejudice come up sometimes unexpectedly and sometimes expectedly in the courthouse, in the boardroom, in the church? I think it has a lot to do with those resilient roots of hate, roots that have a way of creating networks underground to sustain the systems of injustice and hate. But this morning, I want to just spend a few minutes with you talking about the resilience in roots of hope. In some Asian cultures, bamboo symbolizes longevity because of its durability, its strength, its flexibility, and its resilience. And so I invite us this morning to commit to creating networks of hope, networks that are strengthened with love, networks just grounded in justice, networks all around us, networks underneath, so what comes out is strong. Networks that have a hope that does not waver. A network that has a love that's on the move, that cannot be stopped, but continues to bind itself to others. Networks of justice that are flexible and strong and determined. And perhaps our strength is not so much vertical, but it's horizontal, like rhizomes, so that we have a security in our strength. But I understand that often our networks may splinter a little bit. But I want to remind you that we belong to this amazing network of mutuality. And this network of mutuality, as Dr. King used to talk about, depends on us being connected with one another, so that when there is just injustice somewhere, there is injustice everywhere. And so we are in this moment challenged to really determine how is it that we're going to come out on the other side. And I say that before we begin to shoot up, we strengthen our networks of love, of justice, of hope, so that when the storm comes, when the wind blows, when everything comes at us, when the seas roar and the waves hit us, that network of justice, love, and hope will not break, but rather it will stand tall and it will endure. Let it be so. Amen.